Good morning. You're welcome to Radio Doctor on Women Radio 91.7, Nigeria's only radio station for women and their families. I hope you're doing well this morning. How's the morning at your side? How's it going where you are at this very moment? You're welcome. It's currently 17 minutes past 10 o'clock right here in the studio. And this is Radio Doctor, your free health consultation program where real doctors advise real people. Radio Doctor is Nigeria's first specialized health program where medical doctors consult for free and advise on radio, on your Women Radio 91.7. Radio Doctor broadcasts from 10 a.m. Mondays to Friday. So if you want to, learn about your health, and all of those things, Radio Doctor is where you should be every Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. My name is Fulua Akirami, and I'm going to be doing Radio Doctor today with Dr. Collins. He's a doctor for today, and he's an assistant medical director and fertility physician at St. Ives Specialist Hospital in Abeokuta. It's always a pleasure to have Dr. Collins join us on Radio Doctor every time. It's always insightful and very, very life-changing for those who are listening. Today's conversation is about ovulation, timing, signs, and misconceptions about ovulation. Just to help us understand as women what we should look forward to when it comes through our ovulation cycle and all of that. So Dr. Collins is here and he's going to be helping us understand. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Olua. Thank you
Good
for having
morning.
me on the program.
You're welcome. It's so good to have you too. Because of our time, I think my first question would be, in simple terms, what is ovulation? Because many women, they do ovulate, but I don't think many of them have taken time to say, okay, I want to know what my ovulation is, how it happens, what it is about. So for those listening, in simple terms, what is ovulation and why is it centered for a woman's ability to conceive?
All right, thank you for that question. So basically, ovulation is simply a process that was designed to allow a woman conceive. It is simply the release of an egg from the ovaries. So women are born with ovaries, and the function of the ovaries are to one, release egg and to produce hormones, estrogens, progesterones. So basically, for a woman to get pregnant, an egg has to be released from the ovary. And usually, the act of releasing the egg is called ovulation. And this
Mm.
happens 14 days before the start of the menses of the woman.
Mm.
So again, just for emphasis, it happens 14 days before the start of the menses of the woman. So every woman of reproductive age is expected to be ovulating. And then if a woman is pregnant, she's on oral contraceptives, she's breastfeeding, or she's already postmenopausal.
Yeah.
Postmenopausal means she's attained menopause.
Mm.
Okay. Or she has conditions like premature ovarian insufficiency, or she has amenorrhea, which is absence of menses because she's exercising too much or because of weight changes. Such a woman will not be ovulating. Such a
Yeah.
woman isn't ovulating. A woman who sees her menses regularly, by regularity, we mean you see your menses like January, February, March, April, May, like that. Okay, chances are excellent such a woman ovulates. For the moment your menses starts to skip months, you see in January, you don't see in February, March, you see in April. When you start to see this pattern as observed in people that have polycystic ovarian syndrome, such persons aren't ovulating regularly. So um, I think I just have to leave it there. So and
Okay.
just to allow the
No
conversation
problem.
to.
We still have more time to go deeper into the conversation. Now, can you walk us through what happens in the body before, during, and after ovulation? What happens in our body? What signs do we see, or how does what happens in our body basically before, during, and after ovulation?
All right, thank you. So basically, before ovulation, what happens is that during the time that the woman is bleeding, seeing her menses, okay, what happens is that a follicle starts to develop
Hmm.
inside of the ovary. So for follicle is like a space containing fluid where an egg grows. So that follicle starts to develop. By development, we mean it starts to grow.
Yes.
Okay, so that is before the ovulation. When it attains maturity, okay, a hormone is produced in the body called luteinizing hormone, usually produced
Mm.
by the brain, but it affects changes in the ovaries. Okay, so when this luteinizing hormone reaches its peak, okay, it's usually called the LH surge. Okay, that is the hormone called LH. It surges. Surge simply means it peaks, it just
Yeah.
ascends to a very highest point. Okay, when it does that, within between 24 to 36 hours after that surge, the woman would ovulate. The
Mm.
egg the egg that is growing inside of that mature follicle will be released. So the follicle will rupture. Rupture means it will open up and then
Yeah.
the egg comes out. Okay, it is actually influenced by that early surge. So once that follicle is ruptured, that is the ovulation. The egg comes out and it's available. It makes itself available for fertilization by sperm. Once that egg is released from that follicle, the follicle turns into what we call a corpus luteum, a yellow body, which starts to produce progesterone.
Hmm.
Okay, progesterone will be available in the system at that particular time to try to support any pregnancy that will result from the fertilization of that egg. If the
Yes.
egg does not get fertilized, the progesterone just stays around for a little bit of
Mm.
time and then it wanes. Um, I don't want to use what it reduces. It just wanes, and as a result, the woman will see her next menses.
Yeah.
So the body is so designed in such a way that the activities that happen before ovulation and even after ovulation are meant to promote conception, to allow the woman to conceive. While that follicle grows before ovulation, estrogen is being produced by the same follicle,
Mm.
so it will prepare the womb. The estrogen that is produced by the follicle starts to prepare the womb just to make it conducive in case we're going to get pregnant in this month. So just be well receptive. So that is
Yeah.
what it does. And the moment the follicle releases the egg, while the sperm is going to fertilize it, that follicle becomes a corpus luteum, a yellow body and starts to produce progesterone so that once that egg gets fertilized and becomes an embryo, progesterone is what supports and sustains pregnancy. So
Mm.
that at the time that the embryo is moving into the endometrium, progesterone is already there, doing all its job to
Yeah.
make sure the entire space is conducive. So this is
Conducive.
basically what happens. Some persons might see signs even before during all of these before, after, and before, during, and after discussion. People can, of course, experience some ovulation signs, pain, lower abdominal pain, breast tenderness. They see the cervical mucus. Usually, this is sponsored by the estrogen, like I said.
Mm.
That estrogen that is being produced by the follicle that was developing, okay, will affect changes in the cervix. So the cervical gland starts to produce this mucus that becomes very stretchy, thin, and less viscous.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So estrogen is what does all of those magic. Okay. So and then the woman starts to see this cervical mucus. Sometimes she could even have a temperature. So after ovulation, she starts to tell you, okay, I think there's something going on. I don't know. My temperature is just like somebody might just touch her and be like, why are you hot?
There you go.
Like,
Yeah.
and you will tell you, I don't know. I don't have any headache. I feel strong.
Yeah, that's
But then
very
she's
true.
hot.
Yes.
So you know that's the thermogenic effect of progesterone. So that
Mm.
is most likely seen when the woman has already ovulated, when ovulation has happened, because progesterone is thermogenic. It means that it allows temperature to slightly go up. So this is the reason why when women use their temperature to measure whether they ovulate, they can get that change in temperature, especially after ovulation. Usually this
Later.
is called the basal body temperature
Mm.
method. So let me just stop because I think I'm just giving out so much information. So,
Yeah,
yes, there are
and
a lot of
I think
questions this
you
side.
really love this conversation. You really love the concept
It's my
of the
practice, so we don't get tired of
yes.
it. We speak about it on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to know, the many things that go on in our bodies. We just walk around and a lot is going on inside.
Exactly, exactly.
That's really good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So for those who are married, listening right now, they want to know what the fertility window is. You've explained a bit about it, but I want you to expatiate better. What's the fertility window and how many days does it last for?
Beautiful. That's an excellent question. So generally, the fertile window or fertility window, as the case might be, is actually a number of days in the menstrual cycle of a woman, where the woman has the highest potential to get pregnant if she has unprotected intercourse.
Yes.
So basically, it's a range of days, usually ranging around between 5 to 6 days. But just for the sake of this discussion, we'll leave it at 6 days. So
Mm-hmm.
it is 4 days before the ovulation day, inclusive of the ovulation day. Okay, so basically, it's 4 days before the ovulation day, and also 1 day after. Now I will explain. Yes, and up to so it extends from 4 days before ovulation down to 1 day after ovulation. That makes up the entire 6 days. So the reason why it is so, it doesn't mean that a woman only ovulates on 1 day in her menstrual cycle. For people who don't know what a menstrual cycle is, it's simply the number of days that are present between two menstrual periods, the commencement of two menstrual periods. So if you see
Yes.
your menses on the 28th of January, you now see it again on the 25th of February. The number of days between 28th of January and 25th of February is the menstrual cycle length. Okay? Yes. So, and like I said earlier in my definition of ovulation, that ovulation would happen 14 days before the start of the next menses. Okay, so now if a woman, for instance, has a 28-day cycle, I think I'm going to use this, and now you have to know that the cycle length ranges between 21 and 35 days. Okay, but on the average, you see a lot of women. I mean, if you are to sample 10 women and ask them what's the cycle length, meaning how many days are present between when you saw your menses in 1 month and when you see it in the next month, on the average, about 6 or 7 of them will tell you it's 28 days. It's 28
Mm-hmm.
days. It's very common. So now let's use, for the sake of this discussion, let's use 28 days. So for a woman who has a 28-day cycle, okay, it means that that woman will ovulate on day 14. Remember, I told you ovulation would happen 14 days before the next menses. Okay,
Yes.
so she would ovulate on day 14. Such a woman, her fertile window most likely will start from day 12 or even day 11. Yes, can start from day 11. So if we have to do the count, day 11, day 12, day 13, day 14, which is the day she's going to ovulate, and even down to day 15. So, but I said some texts will tell you it is 5 days, some texts will tell you it is 6 days. So we can even still extend that from day 10. We can say your ovulation, the fertile window starts from day 10 for
Yeah.
such a woman. 4 days before the ovulation day, the ovulation day inclusive, the ovulation day itself, and then a day after. So so basically that all of these 6 days now accounts for what we call the fertile window of the woman. The reason why it is so called is because once the woman has intercourse on any of these days, okay, she has a good chance of getting pregnant. Now the reason is because the sperm is able to stay alive inside of the woman for up to 5 days in the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it is for some people 3 days, the sperms are still very, very vibrant inside. The moment it keeps extending, their lifespan also starts to become shorter, inside of the woman. And so basically the sperm start to die. So, but then sperms can stay alive inside of the woman for 5 days. So if the woman has intercourse on maybe on day 10 of her cycle, and she's going to ovulate on day 14, she can get pregnant.
And they're pregnant.
So, oh yeah, so for some person, they'll be like, I didn't even have intercourse, I didn't even have sex on my ovulation. How come I got pregnant? Got pregnant because the sperm was alive inside of you, from the day you had the intercourse up till the day you ovulated. And they were, so some sperms are that vibrant, so they are able to stay alive to that particular point. Yes. So basically, this is the fertile window. So
And
a
they're
lot of people usually we try to, of course, educate our clients that they have to know their menstrual cycle. The knowledge of the menstrual cycle by default comes with the knowledge of the ovulation day, the fertile window, and every other activity that follows. If you use the apps will tell you highest chance of getting pregnant, no, maybe moderate chance of getting pregnant. It now progresses from there to becoming high chance of getting pregnant
just
on the ovulation day itself
yeah.
to give you that very high chance or some. They use different terminologies just to classify, all of these fertile window discussion.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. That was very detailed. Now, for
Yeah.
some women who apart from menstrual pain, I know that some women experience ovulation pain as well. Now, why does this happen? What causes it, and what should we do? Is it something we can avoid, or you just live with it?
Well, the truth is, sometimes it differs. It differs from individuals. Some women experience ovulation pain, which is as a result of the release of the egg. So the ovary is like an organ. So what happens is that when the follicle starts to develop, I would like you to think about it as a form of blister. Have you had if anybody who has had a blister before?
Yes.
Yeah, so you see that big round something containing water. And if you use something to just poke it, you see the fluid comes out and then you see a skin. That is how it is. So a blister, even to touch sometimes can be a little bit, can just be a little bit tender sometimes. So this is how it is in the ovary. So once that follicle grows inside of the ovary, in that space containing fluid and water, it ruptures, it literally breaks open. So once it breaks open, of course, some persons would experience pain by reason of all the now, because once the follicle ruptures and breaks open, releases the egg, it converts into a corpus luteum, starts to produce. So whether we like it or not, so some persons there could be some small inflammatory reaction that could sponsor some small pain
Yes.
here and there in the body. And different people have different pain threshold. So with respect to doing what you should do, well, during that time, you can, for people who experience mittelschmerz, which is the mid-cycle pain, which is the ovulation pain,
Mhm.
well, they can take painkillers sometimes, paracetamol, and just random, just over the counter analgesics can help them. Exercising can also help. Now, the reason is because exercising can also help to boost the blood flow to the female reproductive system. So
Yes.
basically, it would allow so blood supply, good blood supply can also, help to reduce or ameliorate some of these symptoms that people experience that are considered a little bit harsh, like the
Hmm.
ovulation thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So
All right. Thank you so much for that answer as well. So now, what are some of the common mistakes that women can make when they are trying to track their ovulation? Sometimes miscalculation of the numbers and all of that. What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen women make when tracking their ovulation?
beautiful. That's an excellent question. Now, because so I'll just digress a little bit and then quickly jump back to the question.
Mm.
So I saw a client of mine sometime mid
Okay.
last year. She had given birth to a child 6 years prior to that particular visit, and then she started to find it very difficult to get pregnant. So what we saw, she has a 28-day cycle. She bleeds for 5 days. But do you know what happens? She starts to count the menstrual cycle after the menses has finished,
Hmm.
which is a very big mistake.
Hmm.
So your menstrual cycle, the counting, so to say, of the menstrual cycle starts from the very first day of the bleeding, not
Obviously,
when the
yeah.
bleeding has finished. So
Hmm.
if you have a 28-day cycle, it is going to be inclusive of whatever number of days you bleed for. If it is
Oh,
3 days, 4 days, 5 days, the very first day of that particular bleed is day one. The
hmm.
next day, day two, day three. But what she did or what she was doing is that once she finishes her menses for 5 days, the sixth day, which is the next day after she's dry, she starts to count day one, day two, day three. So by so doing, she's already missing her ovulation day by almost 5 days if you do the
5 days.
maths very
Yeah.
correctly. Yeah, so now that is a big mistake. For some people, they're quite ignorant about how to calculate their menstrual cycle length. And then the other mistake we see that most people make is that they just depend on only one method of tracking their ovulation. That is also wrong. If you have to, so basically what would give a more superior benefit is that you combine the method. You use the apps, which are excellent, by the way. There are so many fantastic apps these days, okay, that even can do the job of a doctor sometimes better than the doctor. Yes, I hate to say
I
that
mean, it
anyway,
still
but
cannot
yes.
replace the doctor.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but still cannot replace the doctor. Yeah, so but basically, there are a lot of apps. So when you use the app method, of course, you can also use, of course, the signs. Try to check for the cervical mucus. Just be observant. Nobody is saying you should start dipping your hands and doing no, but just be observant. Okay, at a particular time during your cycle, you start to experience a particular symptom, maybe a one-sided pain, which is the mid-cycle, which is the mid-cycle pain. You
Hmm.
experience that. You see the mucus, and then you use the urine ovulation prediction kit. So it's a combination method that gives that is a more superior approach to tracking the ovulation. And this would also help to prevent all of the mistakes. Like I said, the first mistake we just said now is that, you know, missing the calculation,
Yes.
using only one method to track the ovulation. And
Ovulation.
of course, yes. And so basically, these are the common mistakes that we see. And therefore, some women too, when trying to conceive, their own mistake in that on that wise is that they only meet on the day that the app or whatever method they use says that they are going to ovulate. That is
Yes.
not the best approach. We would advise you meet in the fertile window. So you can of course do that alternate day intercourse in the fertile window, or you can do maybe just very close to the ovulation day, maybe two days before the ovulation day, you can start your intercourse, or maybe a day before the ovulation day, on the ovulation day and the day after. The reason is because the egg can only stay alive for 24 hours. So it is important that even after the ovulation day, you still meet. The egg is released on the ovulation day, has a 24-hour lifespan. So by the next day, the egg should still be viable, so the woman can still have intercourse.
Mm.
So for anybody listening, I believe that would prove to be a good advice for couples trying to conceive.
Yes. Thank you so much, doctor. Thank you for explaining that. Now, a lot of women are going through a lot of stress in this current time, from going to work to maybe they even have children, a lot of stress, basically. How much does this stress impact the ovulation cycle? Does it slow it down? Does it make it faster? Does it stop it from happening? Does stress, impact ovulation altogether?
Yeah, so thank you. That's an excellent question, by the way. So basically, stress has the capacity to alter the menstrual cycle of a woman, really. So now, in for teenagers, just for instance, let me use teenagers, people who are still in school. Well, not just teenagers, just the female gender generally that is still in school. You find out that sometimes around the time of exams, where they have to do a lot of tutorials just to meet
Yeah.
up, just to catch up whatever they've missed, just to get well prepped for their exam. Find out that they start to experience all the sometimes they'll tell you stress acne, or they are just all the hormone interplay that is happening inside of the body. So stress has the capacity to increase the hormone of the body called
Mm.
cortisol. So cortisol is otherwise called the stress hormone. It actually goes up, produced by the adrenal glands. It actually goes up when
Yes.
when the woman is stressed. And when cortisol level increases, it can, of course, alter the way the hormones that will allow follicles to grow inside of the ovaries. It will alter the way they are produced, their quantity, and all the whatnot. So this is how stress can make a woman to have, menstrual irregularities, and by so doing, by extension, it will affect the ovulation of the woman in that particular period.
Yeah.
You see that some women might not tell you that I've not seen my menses, so, and I'm not pregnant. I've done pregnancy tests, and she's gone even past 35 days. She doesn't
Mm.
have PCOS, but just it's like a circumstantial thing or a situational thing. Just at that particular period that she's going through all the stress of life. I mean,
Yes.
recently fuel got increased. A lot of people used to drive cars. Maybe they decide
You
to
now
just use
take
bus
public
instead
transport.
because
Yeah.
a lot of things, and then you have to pick up the kids. So all of these activities can actually just transiently within that period that the person is faced with all of these stressors can alter the menstrual cycle, and by so doing it will of course affect the ovulation. Remember I said once a woman has a regular menstrual cycle, by regularity January, February, March, chances are excellent she's ovulating. Once the menses becomes haphazard, okay,
Yeah.
chances are that she's not ovulating. That is why it has become delayed or having this haphazard pattern.
Mm.
That is of course when the woman has not been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, because that can actually do all the menstrual, can cause menstrual irregularities, and of course infrequent ovulation.
I mean that's to say if you're looking to conceive, you should reduce the level of stress that you go through on a regular basis.
Oh yes, oh yes, very importantly. And there are different ways that women can use to reduce stress. Of course, by doing exercises,
Yeah.
sleeping up to 7 hours. I mean, some person is like, in this economy, can we sleep 7 hours? Well, sometimes there's
Which
an
yeah.
yeah, yeah. You just have to do whatever you can. Sleep adequately. At least 6 to 8 hours is fine. Okay, try to take supplements, engage in exercises 2.5 hours every week. That will suffice. Okay, do engage in yoga, swimming. There are certain exercises or certain sporting activities, like even swimming, that just helps to just relax you once you're done. It stretches all the muscle, allows for good blood supply. And at the end of the day, you just feel, in quote, light. You just feel light, both mentally and
I'm
physically.
physically. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. You mentioned PCOS while you were
yes.
speaking the other time. So I want to ask, how does conditions like PCOS or maybe hormonal imbalance affect ovulation and fertility altogether?
All right. So polycystic ovarian syndrome is a condition that actually affects 18% of women of reproductive age. Okay. And it has the capacity to cause infertility. Okay. In fact, as a matter of fact, this is even a statistic that is currently even on the rise. And we also have to know that not everybody who has polycystic ovaries have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So now let me explain. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is a condition that causes infertility, but it is characterized by now three things generally. I'll just state the three. So it is characterized by menstrual irregularities. And these menstrual irregularities usually would result in, usually as a result of chronic anovulation or infrequent ovulation. What it means that the woman is not ovulating the way she should. Okay, so it will cause menstrual irregularities. Secondly, it will cause what we call clinical hyperandrogenism. So what it simply means is that clinical hyperandrogenism simply means an elevated high level of male hormones. So when a woman has a higher level of male hormones inside of her body, of course, that is can be an expression of
Mm,
hyperandrogenism. Oh yes, and then how do you know that a woman has high level of male hormones now? So you see oily skin, acne, you see male pattern of hair
period.
distribution, beards, on the chest, on the back, on the forearm. So you have to know that that is called exutism. So exutism simply means excessive hair growth. Okay. Yes, but you have to know that it is also ethnicity dependent. There are certain ethnic groups, certain people from certain ethnic distribution that have exotism just by default. Okay, even in Nigeria, we see them a lot. I mean, you see
Yes.
the Fulanis, a lot of hair. You see the Igbos. Just by default, you see a lot of Igbos. Then of course, Mediterranean people of Mediterranean, Indian, Asian ancestry. So basically, you see all of this hair distribution. So it's not everybody. Just like a disclaimer. So you don't just go around, profiling people that this one has hair, this one is PCOS. So no, it is not. It might not be PCOS. I've actually seen a woman with all the signs of everything, but she doesn't even have PCOS. So any which is like I said, PCOS would result in menstrual irregularities, clinical hyperandrogenism, okay, which is the excessive hair growth, oily skin, acne, and then, of course, there will be presence of polycystic ovaries. So the ovaries would have a characteristic pattern. So what happens in polycystic ovarian syndrome is that the eggs are actually arrested at a particular stage of development. So the woman will not ovulate.
Mm,
And if she doesn't ovulate, there is no way that she can get pregnant. So ovulation, like I said, for people who are just joining us, ovulation is simply the release of the egg from the ovary. If a woman does not ovulate, she cannot get pregnant. So this
yes.
is how polycystic ovarian syndrome causes infertility by preventing ovulation, menstrual irregularities. And of course, it doesn't even end there. It predisposes to having other conditions like even type 2 diabetes, obesity, different cardiovascular conditions even. And it actually has these tentacles like an octopus stretching into different conditions. So it can really be tough, really, for some persons. Some people, like I said earlier, have polycystic ovaries, but they do not have polycystic ovarian syndrome. The moment you start to have a barrage of symptoms in addition to having polycystic ovaries, then that becomes the polycystic ovarian syndrome. For a woman to be diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, for anybody listening and wondering whether they have it, then we have to see two out of these three criteria that I just listed. Number one, the woman should be having menstrual irregularities. You see a woman having menses every 45 days. That's when she sees her menses. Count 45 days before she sees her menses. That is already oligomenorrhea. That is menstrual irregularities. That's number one. Number two, you now see all the signs that we listed earlier, having beards, hair
Yes.
growth on the chest, on the back, on the thighs, on the chin, and all the whatnot. Basically, that is a sign of clinical hyperandrogenism. The moment you see just two of these, that is enough to actually diagnose polycystic ovarian syndrome. For some other persons, they have all three criteria met, and then they would have polycystic ovaries. So that becomes the third criteria in diagnosing this condition. But thankfully, it can be managed. So anybody that has polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's not the end of the world. It can be managed. You live your life very well and even have kids. So it's not a problem.
Hmm. Okay, thank you so much, doctor. Is there a reason why women experience this COS, for example? Is there some, apart from the genetics, people who get it there naturally? Is there something maybe women do that make them just have these things or make them develop the signs and the symptoms, and then it becomes a struggle generally? Is it something that you can maybe you do something and you just get it, or it's just natural?
Well, truthfully, it is largely natural. Natural in this case, meaning genetics, okay, just by default, just giving birth to the person, and the person just has this propensity, by reason of all the just the genetic makeup generally. But then for the pathophysiology of I don't know what to change the word pathophysiology to now. Anyways, we have linked it to the failure of what we call the GnRH pump or pulsatile generator, what we call LH dysregulation. So the hypothalamus is a structure in the brain that produces hormones, okay, called the gonadotropin releasing hormone. And these gonadotropin releasing hormone will affect change in the pituitary gland to produce FSH and LH. For people who have done the hormone profile, you see something like FSH and LH. Okay,
Yes.
so sometimes the LH, there will be dysregulation, okay, of the
Mhm.
LH. Okay, so the way it is produced, the quantity, and all the whatnots will be affected, and as a result, it becomes very high and will cause androgen production in the ovaries. Okay, so that is just one pathophysiology. Another thing that has been linked to is what we call hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance in this case. So some person might be wondering, okay, doctor, we're talking about PCOS. Why are you talking about insulin? Is insulin not related to diabetes? Yes, insulin is produced by the pancreas, but it is required for ovarian functioning. Okay, so for some people who are uh, maybe for some reason they are overweight and all, they have insulin resistance, and this can of course stimulate androgen productions. And this androgen production, has a way to just cause hormone imbalance, okay, when the androgen level becomes high. So again, like we said, it is largely genetic, but then sometimes it has been attributed to a condition called insulin resistance, like I said, and this insulin resistance is largely seen in people that are overweight or obese. Okay, so and again, um, truthfully, the PCOS discussion is one that is it is still it's a subject of research or even on a daily basis. So and because we are now finding out that a lot of people have coming down with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay, it is largely because of poor research in the past or under research, not poor research now, but like it wasn't researched enough. You understand? So now when I see that a lot of people are just coming down with it, you see out of every 10 women, you can see like 3 or 4 have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Yes, it's actually on the rise. And then the environment isn't really helping out. But I believe soon research will throw more light into it and they'll be able to give more updated information.
Yes.
And that's
I
it.
hope so too. I hope so too. Thank you so much for that answer. It has been a very insightful conversation since we started. I think my last question would be, at what point should a woman seek medical help for ovulation issues? And, what are some of the tests that are typically done to confirm ovulation?
All right, beautiful. So basically, once a woman is experiencing menstrual irregularities, okay, and for a woman who is married and is trying to conceive and she's under the age of 35, she's tried for a year and she's not gotten pregnant, then of course that is the time for her to head to the doctor to get evaluated. For a woman is above the age of 35, they're experiencing menstrual irregularities and even some of the symptoms that we just listed now that points to PCOS and all the whatnots or even for even somebody that is younger, we still advise the woman visits the physician on time so that help can be rendered to her, promptly. And then of course any woman also who has a regular menstrual cycle and she's been trying to conceive and she's not getting pregnant, she should
Mm.
still visit her doctor
Okay.
so that whatever she's been doing will be evaluated. Because truthfully, like I said, imagine the patient that I saw that starts the count of her menstrual cycle after she completes her menses, which is
Yeah.
so imagine if she had not even come to me, I wouldn't have been able to actually spot that mistake and
Mm.
correct it. So it is important. So ovulation tracking and the knowledge of the menstrual cycle is very important for a woman generally. It doesn't even have to. The woman doesn't have to get pregnant, get married, and be desirous of conception before ovulation becomes an important information. So the knowledge of the menstrual cycle and the ovulation is very important for every woman of reproductive age. If you started seeing your menses, it's important you invest in knowing your menstrual cycle. It will help you generally. There's another discussion that I was about that I would maybe at some point would have God would grant us a liberty to touch, which is for women to know what day is safe, what is called the safe period. At some point in teenage years, generally, it was a very big, interesting topic. I want to know what day is safe, you know. Oh
Yeah.
yes. So the knowledge of the menstrual cycle also affords women, that liberty to know what day is safe what day they can have intercourse and not get pregnant, and the
Yeah.
days that they can have intercourse, like you said, like the fertile window, that they will get pregnant. A lot of people have gotten into trouble because they didn't know which one was which. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a discussion for another day. So help is readily available. So just visit your physician. After evaluation, of course, using tests like the hormone profile, okay, the routine hormone profile. Even for some persons, just by doing follicular tracking, there's something called follicular tracking, where we use scans to monitor the day the woman is going to ovulate. It's quite accurate because you do a scan on a particular day, you see a follicle develop, you do the scan on the ovulation day, and you expect that follicle to be at the verge of rupturing. Okay, for some persons, even at the time of doing the scan, you see that the follicle even has already ruptured. So it means that the person just ovulated or has ovulated a day before. So this is follicular tracking. It's comprised of a series of scans done before ovulation, on the ovulation day, and after ovulation. This will help to pinpoint the same fertile window we're talking about, and also be able to pinpoint the day exactly that the woman ovulates. So
Yeah.
like I said, doing all these tests, hormone profile, progesterone levels, follicular tracking would, of course, a test that would help the woman to understand her ovulation better. And would also be able to spot if there is any problem. For some women, they've done the hormone profile to check the hormones that are produced in the body, FSH, LH, progesterone, estrogen. And then you see that the estrogen level is low. You already know that there's a problem. The estrogen level should not be low at the time you're doing the test if you did it correctly. If the estrogen level is low, then it means that there's a problem. Either the woman is not ovulating or she's having progesterone insufficiency. You
Mm.
can already see all this just from doing tests.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much for today's free consultation and advice. I learned a lot actually, and I'm sure that those listening would also learn one or two things from the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Collins, if you don't know, is an assistant medical director and fertility physician at St. Ives Specialist Hospital in Abeokuta. And also, if you wish to get in touch with Dr. Collins for maybe consultations, you can do so using the TeleDoc app. You can download it on Android, on Apple Play Store as well. It's there. Thank you so much for listening this morning. Radio Doctor is Women Radio's Nigeria's first free consultation specialized radio health program, and it happens every Monday to Friday. So from Monday to Friday, stay tuned to Women Radio 10 a.m. every Monday to Friday to get free medical consultations right here on radio. Till next week, till tomorrow, actually. Till tomorrow, by the grace of God, 10 a.m., same time, same station. My name is Finfolua Akiremi. Thank you so much, Dr. Collins. It was nice having you
Thank you
here.
for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. A big thank you to the producer, Aisha Sani, and the executive producer, Tom Okewale Shonaya. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.